Good morning and welcome to Friday at Fran's, although today we're not at Fran's because I'm in Portland, Oregon with my son and daughter-in-law and my grandbaby Mia. So I brought some things with me that I could carry, and as I'm pulling them out I thought I should have brought a whole lot more, but I had two full suitcases as it was with baby gifts and my clothes for the month. So we are going to talk about thread today, and one thing we're going to talk about is the quality of thread. So you can buy thread that costs maybe, well, one we have is like $2.50 for 100 yards of thread. You can buy it at some of the big box stores for maybe $1 for 100 yards of thread. There is a difference. One time as I was going to different meetings, one of the thread companies pointed out how they make the inexpensive thread and how they make their brand thread. And usually they talk about, especially with a cotton thread, they talk about English cotton, Egyptian cotton, or long staple cotton. So the cotton, as it's milled, some of the pieces are longer than others. So one of ours, the Mettler thread, which I failed to bring a spool of that, talks about a silk finish. So it's really finely finished and usually 2 or 3 ply. And what they do is they make your good threads, and then they pick up all the little pieces and make the cheap threads. So if Matthew zooms in at this point, you might be able to tell the difference. So here I have my Orifil thread, which is a cotton thread, and here I have, and this is actually even a polyester thread, which they could make as long staple as they wanted to, but you can see the lot of the fuzzies there, and there's some thick spots and thin spots. So that's going to make a big difference as it goes through your sewing machine. The tensions are going to pick up differently in the thick spots than the thin spots. It's going to cause a lot more lint in your machine. So you're paying a lot of money for your quality sewing machine. Just think a little bit about the quality of the thread that you're using. Okay, so that's the cotton thread. So cotton thread we're going to use for quilting. Well, quilters usually like to use cotton thread. You don't want to use a thread that's a whole lot stronger than your fabric, because then the thread's going to cut through the fabric and have it give way quicker. So we carry the Orifil thread in a 50 weight in the store. We also carry the Mettler thread. We have different weights in the Mettler thread. We have, okay, another thing about thread. The numbers indicate how heavy the thread is. Excuse me. With thread, the higher the number, the finer the thread. So here we have, and I know I'm making poor Matthew come in and out here. Here we have, make sure I get the two of these straight. These are often used for quilting, and I can't read this morning which one. Okay, this is the heaviest weight thread we carry. This is a 12 weight thread. Okay. And that's a variegated, sulky thread, often used in quilting. I got this so tight in here, I can't get the end. Here we go. So here we go a little bit lighter. That's a 30. So just even laying here, you can tell the difference. So this quilt here, if I can bring this over. This quilt here is done with the 30 weight thread, and it stands out a little bit. This was a variegated. It's very difficult to see. If you've seen any of my quilting, any of the things I make, it's usually pretty subtle. So I don't like the threads to really stand out. So cotton, we've got the 12 weight, the 30 weight. Usually 40 weight is is one we carry. People like to use for fine embroidery. 50 weight is typically what you're going to use when you're sewing your quilt together. And then I have one here this is another Orfill that we carry, and this is a this is an 80 weight thread. That's the lightest weight thread we carry, and I like to use that when I don't want the thread to show up. So this little baby quilt here has got some of the 80 weight thread, and this placemat here. So the thread is not what shows up, it's the design that shows up, especially after it's been washed a few times like these have been. Okay, so that is my cotton threads. Polyester thread I use for dressmaking. Anytime you want it stronger, we carry the Madeira Orfill thread. It's a great value thread. This little spool has 400 yards on it, where a spool like this only had 100 yards at it. So don't let the spool size fool you as to how much thread you're getting. So that's our typical sewing thread, and then we also carry threads for embroidery. We carry two different kinds, the sulky, which is a rayon thread. The embroidery threads used in your embroidery machines, or just to do decorative stitches if you don't have an embroidery machine. They give you, this one has got a snap on it. They give you a high luster. The actual thread's not important, it's just the fact that it gives you a high luster. So when you're doing your fancy stitches, you're doing your, and here we look at this one a little bit more. It's used in the outline of the bunny and the leaves, and you see how it just makes the thread in these instances stand out. And then of course if you're embroidering names and that, you want them to stand up also. So that's primarily the threads, and then you can get into more specialty threads. I brought a couple here. And a lot of people shy away from them because they are harder to use. You have to be a little bit more careful on your sewing machine because they are a more delicate thread. You've got your metallic thread here. Now the way they make that is they have a polyester core and then they wrap the metallic around it. So that's why you need to be careful as you feed this that you don't create a twist in the thread, because then you'll put a twist in that. And then the other one, and this may be very difficult to see, this is called a, well, it's sliver is what they call it, and it really is just a sliver of mylar. That's all it is. But you can see just the colors, how it's picking up here. In certain instances, it gives you just that little bit of punch. I like to use it when I'm doing a water scene for like the bubbles, and it looks more like bubbles to me. So that's it today with Friday at Fran's. I just talked to Lydia this morning. She said we've gotten lots of new fabric in, so if you haven't been in lately, make an appointment and come on in. And I'll see you next week at Friday with Fran.